The sky was wrong. It wasn't just the strange colors that made people uneasy. It was the way it felt. The air seemed heavier, as if the weight of something unseen pressed down on everyone, across the world. People stopped what they were doing to look up at the heavens. Auroras danced in places where auroras had no business being. Over deserts, above oceans, even in broad daylight. Birds refused to fly, their instincts screaming that something unnatural was happening. In Seoul, South Korea, Jaemin sat alone in his small apartment, staring at a wall covered with equations and star charts. His laptop hummed softly beside him, displaying streams of data from telescopes around the globe. He had been tracking these anomalies for months now, but today everything was different. Today, the numbers didn't make sense anymore. Patterns he thought he understood suddenly shifted into chaos. Jaemin leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He was a man who lived for logic, for order. That's why this, whatever it was, unsettled him so deeply. For weeks, he'd noticed subtle changes in cosmic radiation levels, slight shifts in gravitational pulls between planets. At first, he dismissed them as errors in measurement or minor fluctuations caused by solar activity. But now, there was no denying it. Something enormous was coming. As he stared at his screen, news alerts began flooding in. Satellite communications were failing worldwide. GPS systems blinked out one after another. Pilots reported strange interference near major flight paths. Governments issued vague warnings about technical difficulties while scrambling behind closed doors. Panic spread like wildfire across social media. Videos surfaced of glowing shapes descending from the sky, though most were dismissed as hoaxes or tricks of light. Then came the moment when denial was no longer an option. A massive structure appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. It was unimaginably large, dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting sunlight in ways that made it impossible to look at directly. The object didn't move like a spaceship. It hovered effortlessly, defying every law of physics known to man. News outlets struggled to describe it. Some called it a ship. Others referred to it as a city floating in space. Whatever it was, it sent shockwaves through every corner of the planet. Scientists debated endlessly on live television, throwing out theories ranging from alien invasion to some kind of experimental human technology gone horribly wrong. Politicians held emergency meetings, tried to decide how or if they should respond. Jaemin watched all of this unfold from his apartment, feeling both fascinated and terrified. This was the moment he'd spent his entire career preparing for. Yet now that it had arrived, he felt completely unprepared. What could anyone do against something so incomprehensibly advanced? His phone buzzed loudly, breaking the silence. Startled, he picked it up and saw a message from someone he hadn't heard from in years. Hygiene Choi. Jaemin, the text read, "We need you." Hygiene worked for the United Nations, coordinating international responses to global crises. They'd met briefly during a conference years ago, but she'd always struck him as someone who got things done, efficient, direct, and utterly fearless. He hesitated before replying. "What's going on?" "They're calling it the visitor," Hygiene wrote back. "No one knows what it wants, but we think you might be able to help us figure out." Jaemin sighed. He knew saying yes would mean leaving behind the quiet life he'd built for himself, diving headfirst into chaos. But deep down, he also knew he couldn't say no. This was bigger than him, bigger than anyone. If humanity stood any chance of surviving whatever was coming, they needed answers, and fast. "I'll come," he typed finally. Minutes later, a car pulled up outside his building. Two men in suits waited inside, their faces grim. They didn't ask questions as they drove him to a secure facility on the outskirts of the city. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. People rushed back and forth, shouting orders into radios. Screens lined the walls, showing feeds from satellites and ground-based observatories. Hygiene greeted him personally, her expression unreadable. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, but there was steel in her voice when she spoke. "Thanks for coming," she said. "We don't have much time." She led him to a room filled with scientists and military personnel. Maps and diagrams covered the tables, along with hastily scribbled notes. Everyone turned to look at him as he entered. "This is Jamin Park," Hygiene announced. "One of the best astrophysicists we've got. If anyone can tell us what we're dealing with, it's him." Jamin felt a surge of pressure, but pushed it aside. Now wasn't the time for doubt. He stepped forward, studying the images displayed on the monitors. "What do we know so far?" he asked. "Not much," admitted one of the scientists. "It's emitting some kind of signal, a low-frequency hum, but we can't decipher it. Our attempt to communicate have failed completely." Jamin nodded slowly. "Let me see the data." For hours, he pored over the information, piecing together fragments of signals, analyzing patterns in the object's movements. Around him, arguments broke out among the team members. Some believed the object was hostile. Others thought it might be benign. A few even suggested it was some kind of natural phenomenon, though no one could explain how that was possible. Finally, Jamin spotted something unusual, a repeating sequence buried within the hum. It wasn't random noise. It was deliberate. "There's a pattern here," he said, pointing to the screen. "It's not just a signal, it's a message." The room fell silent. "What does it say?" Hygiene asked. "I'm not sure yet," Jamin admitted, "but I think it's written in mathematics. Universal constants, geometric shapes, things any intelligent species would recognize." Excitement rippled through the group. If they could decode the message, maybe they could establish contact. Maybe they could find out what the object wanted. But before Jamin could dig deeper, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the main monitor, the object began changing shape. Panels slid open across its surface, revealing intricate designs that pulsed with light. Then, without warning, beams of energy shot toward Earth. Panic erupted. Cities plunged into darkness as power grids failed. Radio waves became unusable. The hum grew louder, vibrating through buildings and bones alike. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the attack stopped. On screens around the world, words began appearing. In every language imaginable: "Prove your worth or perish." Silence fell once more. Hygiene turned to Jamin, her jaw clenched. "Looks like we've got our answer," she said. "Now we just have to prove ourselves." Jamin stared at the message, his mind racing. Prove their worth? How? And why? Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. Humanity's survival depended on finding the answers, and quickly. The message lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Prove your worth or perish. It wasn't a threat. It was a challenge. But what did it mean? And how could humanity possibly respond to something so vast, so unknowable? In the secure facility outside Seoul, tension hung thick like smoke. The team gathered around monitors displaying the alien structure, its surface now pulsing faintly with light. No one spoke for a long moment. Everyone seemed frozen, caught between disbelief and dread. Hygiene broke the silence first. Her voice was steady, though her knuckles whitened as she gripped the edge of the table. "We need to figure out what they want from us," she said. "That's our starting point." Jamin nodded slowly, his mind already racing through possibilities. He had spent hours analyzing the mathematical patterns embedded in the object signal. Now, staring at the words on the screen, he felt certain this wasn't just about brute force or survival. Whoever, or whatever, was behind the structure wanted to see if humanity could think, adapt, and solve problems. "They're testing us," Jimin said finally, his tone quiet but firm. "This isn't random destruction. They gave us a warning before attacking. That means they're looking for something specific." "But what?" asked Dun-Woo, a young hacker who'd been brought in to assist with decoding signals. His fingers hovered over his laptop keyboard, itching to dive into the data. How do we even begin to guess what aliens consider worthy? Suah, the linguist seated beside him, leaned forward thoughtfully. "Maybe it's not about aliens," she suggested. "Think about it. If they're advanced enough to build that thing, maybe they're trying to measure universal qualities. Intelligence, creativity, cooperation, things any intelligent species might value." Hygiene considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Then we focus on those areas. We show them we can work together, think critically, and find solutions." She turned to Jamin. "Start with the math. If there's a pattern, you'll find it. For the next several hours, the room buzzed with activity. Scientists pored over equations, engineers tinkered with equipment, and strategists debated potential responses. Outside, chaos reigned. Cities struggled to recover from the energy surge that had crippled power grids. Governments argued over whether to retaliate, surrender, or wait for further instructions. But inside the facility, a fragile sense of purpose began to take shape. J-Min worked tirelessly, his eyes glued to lines of code and streams of numbers. He noticed something new, a series of symbols hidden within the hum that seemed to correspond to Earth's geography. Coordinates, perhaps? Or maybe a map of some kind. "Un-woo!" he called out suddenly. "Can you run these sequences through your decryption software? I think they might be pointing to locations on Earth." Un-woo perked up immediately, typing furiously. Within minutes, a holographic projection appeared above the table. It showed a network of points scattered across continents, each glowing faintly. "These are real places," Suwa murmured, leaning closer. "They match landmarks, mountains, rivers, cities. But why these spots?" Before anyone could answer, alarms blared again. This time, the alien structure didn't attack directly. Instead, massive storms erupted simultaneously at each of the marked locations. Lightning crackled violently. Winds tore through buildings and torrential rain flooded streets. "What's happening?" Hygiene demanded, her voice sharp with urgency. "It's targeting those areas." J-Min exclaimed, "Whatever this is, it's not natural. Look." He pointed to monitors, where satellite images revealed strange patterns forming within the storms. Swirling lights created intricate shapes, geometric designs that shifted and morphed rapidly. "They're giving us another puzzle," Suwa realized aloud. "It's like they're forcing us to solve it while under pressure." Hygiene, clench your fists. "Then we solve it. Fast." The team sprang into action. Un-woo hacked into weather satellites, feeding live data into their systems. Suwa analyzed the symbols appearing in the storms, searching for linguistic or cultural connections. Meanwhile, J-Min focused on identifying mathematical relationships between the shapes and Earth's physical properties. Time ticked away mercilessly. Reports poured in from affected regions. Entire neighborhoods destroyed, thousands displaced, panic spreading faster than the storms themselves. Some leaders called for military intervention, arguing that humanity should fight back rather than bow to an unknown enemy. Others urged patience, insisting that understanding the challenge was key to survival. Amid the chaos, J-Min wrestled with doubt. What if he was wrong? What if the solution eluded them and billions paid the price? He glanced at Hygiene, who stood nearby issuing orders with calm precision. Her confidence steadied him, reminding him that failure wasn't an option. Not here, not now. Finally, after hours of relentless effort, a breakthrough came. J-Min spotted a recurring sequence in the storm patterns, a Fibonacci spiral intertwined with prime numbers. It was elegant, almost beautiful in its complexity. "I've got it," he shouted, drawing everyone's attention. "It's a cipher. They're using Earth's natural constants as keys." With trembling hands, he input the sequence into the system. Instantly, the swirling lights in the storms began to fade. One by one, the violent weather fronts dissipated, leaving behind clear skies and stunned survivors. On the monitors, a new message appeared. One test passed. Many remain. Relief washed over the team, though it was short-lived. They had succeeded, for now, but the stakes were higher than ever. "Well done," Hygiene said, her voice tinged with both pride and caution. "But don't celebrate yet. This is only the beginning." J-Min sank into a chair, exhausted but exhilarated. For the first time since the alien structure arrived, he allowed himself a flicker of hope. Humanity wasn't powerless. They had proven they could face the impossible and win. But as he looked at the faces of his teammates, he couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest challenges still lay ahead. The victory was fleeting. The relief that had swept through the team after solving the first trial quickly faded as reality set in. One test passed. Many remain. Those words echoed in everyone's minds, a grim reminder that this was far from over. Outside the secure facility, the world teetered on the edge of chaos. News outlets broadcast endless footage of destruction left by the storms. Crumbled buildings flooded streets, families huddled in shelters. People demanded answers, but governments could offer little more than vague reassurances. Inside the facility, the atmosphere was tense. Hygiene paced back and forth, her sharp eyes scanning the room as if searching for solutions hidden in plain sight. Jae-min sat slumped at his workstation, staring blankly at the screen. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. He hadn't slept in nearly 2 days, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. Beside him, Eun-woo tapped furiously on his keyboard, trying to decode any new signals coming from the alien structure. Suah flipped through pages of notes, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Okay," Hygiene said finally, stopping in front of the group. "We passed one trial, but we can't afford to get cocky. Whoever or whatever is behind this isn't playing games. They're testing us systematically, pushing us to our limits. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." "But how?" Eun-woo asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "How do we prepare for something we don't even understand? What if they hit us with something worse next time?" "That's exactly why we have to stay ahead," Hygiene replied firmly. "We've already proven we can solve puzzles under pressure. Now we need to anticipate their moves. Think about what they might target next. Technology? Ethics? Survival instincts? Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Jae-min nodded slowly, rubbing his temples. "They're probably watching us right now," he said, "testing not just our intelligence, but how we respond when pushed to the brink. That's why the first trial was so intense. It wasn't just about solving the math problem. It was about whether we could work together under extreme conditions." Suah looked up from her notes. "If that's true, then maybe the next trial will focus on something else entirely. Maybe cooperation." Her words hung in the air. Cooperation. It sounded simple enough, but humanity's history was riddled with division, wars, greed, inequality. How could they prove unity when the world seemed more fractured than ever? As if in response to their thoughts, the alien structure shifted again. Panels across its shimmering surface opened wide, revealing glowing symbols that pulsed in rhythm. Moments later, screens around the globe flickered to life, displaying a single image, a massive sphere surrounded by smaller orbs connected by thin lines. "It's a network," Jae-min murmured, leaning closer to the monitor. "But what does it represent?" Before anyone could answer, the image changed. Text appeared beneath it, written in every language. "Your networks are weak. Strengthen them or fail." Hygiene frowned. "Networks? Are they talking about communication systems? Power grids? Or something else entirely?" Eun-woo tapped a few keys, pulling up global infrastructure maps. "If they mean physical networks, we're in trouble. Most of our systems are outdated, patched together haphazardly over decades. A coordinated attack could cripple us completely." "No," Suah interrupted. "I think it's deeper than that. Look at the design. It's not just about technology. Those orbs are interconnected, dependent on each other. Maybe they're referring to human relationships, connections between nations, communities, individuals." Jae-min nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. If they're testing our ability to cooperate, they'll target our weakest links. Divisions between countries, distrust among people." Hygiene crossed her arms, her expression grim. "Then we better start bridging those gaps, and fast." Over the next few hours, the team worked tirelessly to coordinate efforts worldwide. Hygiene reached out to international leaders, urging them to share resources and intelligence. Resistance was fierce. Some nations refused to cooperate, fearing betrayal or loss of power. Others argued that focusing on defense was more important than collaboration. Meanwhile, Eun-woo hacked into abandoned facilities, repurposing old satellites and communication arrays to create a temporary global network. It was risky, many systems were unstable, but it gave humanity a fighting chance. Suah focused on decoding cultural references within the alien message, hoping to find clues about their intentions. She discovered subtle patterns resembling ancient symbols of unity found in various civilizations: circles, knots, interlocking shapes. They're speaking a universal language, she explained to the group. Not just math or science, but concepts anyone can grasp. Connection, balance, harmony. Jamin stared at the glowing sphere on the screen, his mind racing. Maybe the trial isn't just about fixing networks. It's about proving we understand the importance of connection itself. His words struck a chord. Slowly, the pieces began falling into place. The next morning, the alien structure acted again. This time, it unleashed a simulated pandemic, a virtual virus spreading rapidly across digital networks, infecting devices and rendering them useless. Hospitals lost access to critical systems. Banks shut down. Transportation ground to a halt. Panic erupted worldwide. Governments scrambled to contain the damage, but the virus adapted faster than anyone could counter it. Cities descended into chaos as people realized they couldn't rely on technology anymore. Back at the facility, the team watched helplessly as reports poured in. "This isn't just an attack," Hygiene said, her voice tight with anger. "It's another test. They're forcing us to adapt without our usual tools, to survive together." Jamin clenched his fists. "We need a cure. Something to stop the virus before it destroys everything." Unwu shook his head. "It's too advanced. Even if I reverse engineer it, there's no guarantee we can distribute the fix in time. Not without working networks." Su'a stood suddenly, her eyes bright with determination. "What if we don't fight it digitally? What if we go analog?" Everyone turned to look at her. "We've been relying on machines for everything," she continued. "But humans survived long before computers. We can do it again. Let's use basic methods, manual labor, handwritten instructions, word-of-mouth communication. If we teach people how to disconnect from the infected systems and operate independently, we might buy ourselves enough time to develop a solution." Hygiene nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it's our best shot. Spread the word. Tell everyone to unplug, to work together locally. We'll centralize information here and send updates as needed." For the rest of the day, the team worked frantically to implement Su'a's plan. Instructions were broadcast over radio waves, printed on flyers, and shared via messengers. Communities banded together, pooling resources and skills to keep essential services running. Farmers delivered food to cities. Engineers built makeshift generators. Teachers organized groups to care for children whose schools had closed. Amid the turmoil, glimpses of hope emerged. Strangers helped each other. Neighbors who had never spoken before worked side by side. Nations that had once been enemies shared supplies and expertise. Finally, after hours of relentless effort, Unwu managed to isolate the virus's core code. With Jamin's guidance, he developed a patch capable of neutralizing it. Using the rudimentary network he'd pieced together earlier, they distributed the fix globally. Slowly, systems began to come back online. The virus receded, leaving behind a battered but resilient world. On the monitors, a new message appeared. Cooperation demonstrated. Adaptability proven. One step closer. The team let out a collective sigh of relief, though none of them dared celebrate yet. "We did it," Hygiene said quietly, looking at each member of the group. "But we couldn't have done it alone. This was humanity's victory, not just ours." Jamin smiled faintly, feeling a spark of pride despite the exhaustion weighing him down. For the first time, he truly believed they might stand a chance against the impossible. Outside, dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light across the scarred landscape. The road ahead would be long and difficult. But for now, humanity had taken another step forward, together. The world was quieter now, but the silence carried a weight of its own. After surviving the simulated pandemic, humanity had been given a brief reprieve. The alien structure remained in orbit, its shimmering surface glowing faintly as if waiting. No new messages had appeared, no fresh challenges had emerged. But everyone knew it was only a matter of time. Inside the secure facility outside Seoul, tension simmered beneath the surface. Hygiene stood by the main monitor, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her eyes scanned the screens displaying live feeds from around the globe. Cities slowly recovering, communities rebuilding, leaders debating their next steps. Despite the progress they'd made, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not just by the alien entity, but by each other. Trust was fragile, and cracks were already forming. Jae-min sat at his workstation, staring blankly at lines of code scrolling across a screen. He hadn't slept properly in days, his mind consumed with questions about what might come next. Suah sat nearby, flipping through pages of notes while absently chewing on the end of a pen. Eun-woo leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin as he stared at the ceiling. "We can't keep guessing," Jin said finally, breaking the silence. "We need to prepare for anything. If we wait for them to make the next move, we'll be caught off guard again." "But how?" Eun-woo asked, sitting up straighter. "We don't even know what kind of trial is coming. It could be anything, another storm, another virus, or something completely different." Suah nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe we're thinking too narrowly. These trials aren't random. They're designed to test specific qualities. Intelligence, cooperation, adaptability, maybe this time, it's something else entirely." Jae-min looked up sharply. "Like what? Morality? Creativity? Or sacrifice?" Jin added grimly. "If they're testing whether we deserve to survive, they'll push us to our limits. They'll force us to make impossible choices." Her words hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew she was right. Humanity wasn't perfect. Its history was stained with conflict, greed, and selfishness. How could they prove themselves worthy when so much of their past pointed to the opposite? As if summoned by their thoughts, the alien structure shifted once more. Panels slid open across its surface, revealing intricate patterns that pulsed with light. A deep hum filled the air, resonating through the walls of the facility. On every screen worldwide, an image appeared, a massive battlefield strewn with bodies, weapons, and smoke. Beneath it, text scrolled into view. "Choose wisely. Your fate depends on your decision." "What does that mean?" Eun-woo asked nervously, his voice barely above a whisper. Before anyone could answer, the scene changed. Two planets appeared side by side, one lush and green, teeming with life, the other barren and gray, scarred by destruction. Between them floated a small orb radiating energy. "This is a moral dilemma," Jae-min murmured, his brow furrowed as he studied the image. "They're forcing us to choose between saving ourselves or helping someone or something else." Jin stepped closer to the monitor, her jaw clenched. "Explain." "It's simple," Jae-min continued. "That orb represents energy, probably enough to restore Earth or save the dying planet. But not both. If we take it for ourselves, we survive, but the other planet dies. If we give it away, we sacrifice ourselves to preserve life elsewhere." Suah shook her head. "It's not just about survival. It's about values. Are we willing to put others before ourselves? Or are we too selfish to care?" Eun-woo groaned, slumping back in his chair. "There's no winning here. Either way, people die. How do we decide who deserves to live?" Jin turned to face the group, her expression hardening. "We don't have the luxury of hesitation. Whatever choice we make has to reflect humanity's best qualities, not our worst." For hours, the team debated fiercely. Some argued that humanity's first responsibility was to itself. Sacrificing billions of lives to save strangers, even alien strangers, was unthinkable. Others countered that compassion and selflessness were the hallmarks of an advanced civilization. By refusing to help, humanity would prove itself unworthy of survival. Jae-min listened silently, weighing the arguments. Finally, he spoke. "What if there's a third option? What if we don't accept the choice as it's presented to us? Maybe they're testing whether we can think beyond binary outcomes." Everyone froze, staring at him. "You mean finding a middle ground?" Suah asked slowly. "Yes," Jae-min replied. "If we combine Earth's resources with whatever technology they've given us, maybe we can create a solution that benefits both planets. Share the energy instead of hoarding it. Find a way to sustain both worlds." Jin considered this for a moment, then nodded. "It's risky, but it's worth trying. If nothing else, it shows we're capable of creativity and empathy, qualities they seem to value." The team sprang into action. Eun-woo hacked into global databases, searching for any traces of alien technology left behind during previous trials. Suwa scoured ancient texts and cultural references, looking for examples of symbiosis and mutual aid. Jamin worked tirelessly to calculate how the energy orb could be split without destabilizing either planet. Outside, the world held its breath. News outlets broadcast live updates from the facility, showing images of the alien structure looming ominously in the sky. Leaders called for unity, urging citizens to trust the team working on humanity's behalf. Protests erupted in some cities, with crowds demanding transparency or surrender. Finally, after nearly 48 sleepless hours, the team had a plan. Using Earth's combined knowledge and ingenuity, they devised a way to harness the energy orb's power without draining it completely. By creating a shared network between the two planets, they could distribute resources equally, ensuring neither world suffered unnecessarily. Hygiene delivered the proposal directly to the alien entity, transmitting it via every available communication channel. For a long moment, there was no response. The structure hovered silently, its surface reflecting the light of the sun. Then, slowly it began to change. Panels shifted, forming new patterns that pulsed rhythmically. A message appeared on the screens. Your creativity and compassion are noted. This trial is complete. Relief washed over the team, though none of them dared celebrate yet. Well done, Hygiene said quietly, her voice tinged with pride. But we're not finished. Not until they tell us otherwise. Jamin nodded, exhaustion etched into his face. Let's hope they see enough good in us to let us pass. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, humanity took another step forward. They had proven they could think beyond instinct, act with empathy, and innovate under pressure. But the final challenge still loomed ahead, and none of them knew what it would demand of them. For now, though, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet hope. Together, they had faced the impossible and survived. The alien structure descended closer to Earth, its shimmering surface casting strange reflections across the planet below. For days, it had remained silent, hovering ominously in orbit as if waiting for humanity to make its final stand. Inside the secure facility outside Seoul, the team gathered around monitors, their faces tense with anticipation. They knew this was it, the last trial. Hygiene stood at the center of the room, her posture rigid but determined. Her eyes scanned the screens displaying live feeds from around the world. Cities preparing for the worst, leaders issuing statements of unity, ordinary people holding vigils under starlit skies. Despite everything they'd been through, humanity had come together in ways no one thought possible. But Hygiene couldn't shake the feeling that the greatest test was still ahead. Jamin sat at his workstation, his hands trembling slightly as he reviewed data from previous trials. He replayed the messages sent by the alien entity, searching for patterns or clues about what might come next. Suwa sat beside him, flipping through pages of notes while muttering softly to herself. Unwoo leaned forward, his fingers poised over his keyboard, ready to act at a moment's notice. We've proven intelligence, cooperation, adaptability, and compassion, Jamin said finally, breaking the silence. What else is left? What more could they possibly want from us? Hygiene crossed her arms, her expression grim. Maybe it's not about proving individual qualities anymore. Maybe this time they're testing everything, all of it combined. Before anyone could respond, the hum grew louder, resonating deep within the walls of the facility. The alien structure shifted, revealing a massive opening at its core. From it emerged a towering biomechanical being unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Its body gleamed like polished metal, interwoven with glowing veins of light. Its face, if it could be called that, was featureless, yet somehow conveyed an overwhelming sense of presence. This must be KLVYRN, Suwa whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum. She pointed to ancient text displayed on her tablet. Some cultures describe beings like this, guardians of higher civilizations, tasked with judging those who seek to join them. KLVYRN moved effortlessly toward Earth, its form dwarfing even the largest human-made structures. As it approached, a telepathic voice echoed in everyone's minds, clear and commanding. I am KLVYRN, emissary of the Galactic Council. You have endured our trials, demonstrating qualities that may deem you worthy of joining the stars. Yet one final challenge remains. Prove yourselves, not just as individuals, but as a species united. The voice paused, and images began flooding the screens worldwide. Scenes of destruction played out. Wars waged over resources, pollution choking oceans and skies, greed driving nations to exploit others. Then came contrasting images, acts of kindness, innovation, resilience. A child planting a tree, scientists collaborating across borders, communities rebuilding after disasters. You are flawed, KLVYRN continued. Your history is marked by conflict and suffering. Yet you have also shown potential for growth, for change. Choose now. Will you embrace your imperfections and strive for something greater, or will you succumb to fear and division? The message was clear. It wasn't enough to simply pass tests. Humanity had to confront its own nature, acknowledging both its strengths and weaknesses. Only then could they prove themselves worthy of stepping beyond their home planet. Hygiene turned to the team, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. This isn't just about answering a question. It's about showing who we are and who we want to become. Jamin nodded slowly, his mind racing. They're giving us a chance to define ourselves, to choose our future. But how do we show them? Unwoo asked, frustration creeping into his tone. How do we prove we're ready? Suah spoke up, her voice calm but firm. We tell our story. Not just the bad parts, but the good ones too. We show them that we're capable of learning, of growing, of becoming better. For hours, the team worked tirelessly to craft a response. Unwoo hacked into global networks, compiling footage of humanity's achievements and struggles. Suah wrote a narrative, weaving together words of hope, regret, and determination. Jamin translated it into mathematical patterns, embedding universal constants and geometric shapes to ensure the message would resonate across species. Finally, Hygiene stepped forward, addressing KLVYRN directly. Her voice carried pride, humility, and resolve as she transmitted humanity's reply. We are flawed, she began. We have made mistakes, terrible ones. We have fought wars, destroyed ecosystems, and let fear divide us. But we have also dreamed, created, and rebuilt. We have reached for the stars, not because it was easy, but because it was hard, because we wanted to know what lay beyond ourselves. We are not perfect, but we are trying. Every day, we strive to be better, to understand each other, to protect our planet, to build a future worth living in. If you judge us solely on our past, then perhaps we don't deserve a place among the stars. But if you see us for who we are now and who we can become, then give us a chance to prove ourselves. Let us take the first step toward becoming something greater. As the message ended, silence fell. KLVYRN hovered motionless, its glowing form reflecting the light of Earth's sun. For a long moment, there was no response. Then, slowly, the being raised one massive arm. Light surged from its fingertips, bathing the planet in warmth. A new message appeared on every screen worldwide. You have proven yourselves capable of standing against the impossible. Not because you are perfect, but because you strive to improve. Your journey is just beginning. With that, KLVYRN ascended back into the alien structure. Panels closed, sealing it once more. Slowly, the massive object began to rise, ascending higher and higher until it disappeared into the depths of space. In its wake, it left behind advanced technology scattered across the globe. Gifts meant to aid humanity's transition into a new era. Energy sources that produce clean power endlessly. Medical devices capable of curing diseases once thought incurable. Knowledge encoded in symbols and patterns, waiting to be deciphered. And a single phrase etched into the mind of everyone who had witnessed the encounter. Your fate rests in your hands. Inside the facility, the team stood quietly, processing what had happened. Hygiene let out a shaky breath, her shoulders sagging with relief. Jamin slumped into his chair, tears streaming down his face. Suah smiled faintly, clutching her notes tightly. Unwoo grinned, punching the air triumphantly. They believed in us, Jamin murmured, his voice filled with awe. They saw our flaws and still gave us a chance. Hygiene nodded, her expression softening. because they know we're capable of change, of growth. That's why we survived. Outside, dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. People emerged from their homes, gazing upward at the empty space where the alien structure had been. Children laughed, playing beneath clear skies. Adults hugged each other, sharing quiet moments of gratitude. Humanity had faced the impossible and triumphed. But as Jae-min looked out the window, watching the sunlight dance across the cityscape, he knew this was only the beginning. The real work lay ahead, building a future worthy of the trust placed in them. For the first time in his life, he felt truly hopeful. Together, humanity had taken its first step toward the stars, and together, they would keep reaching further.